Hey, this is Math. Mr. Jorgensen here. We're going to be covering section 7.5 on factoring today. So stay tuned. There's going to be a few questions for you along the way. This is definitely an important section, so hopefully you'll get it all figured out. So when we're doing factoring, it's really similar to division. So kind of factoring is to multiplying polynomials as division is to multiplication. So it's kind of undoing the process. So in order to do that, we are going to have to remember how to do multiplication. So just a reminder of that, x plus 3 times x minus 7, if we're multiplying, I would do it with a box. X plus 3 times x minus 7, I would multiply into those boxes, so I'd get x squared minus 7x plus 3x and minus 21. And then I would combine that like term, which is usually going to show up on that diagonal there. So I get x squared, negative 7 and plus 3 makes a minus 4x. Minus 21. So that's just a reminder on how to multiply, just because we're going to have to be able to do that throughout the day. I want you to try one. So go ahead and try x plus 6 times x plus 4. Go ahead and multiply that with the box and enter your answer when you're ready. All right, so hopefully your box ended up something like that. We have x squared. We have the diagonal, which combines to a 10x and plus 24. So that's just a review on multiplying. We tried that earlier in the chapter. If you need a review on that, you should go back and watch a previous video. But based on this, we're now going to try to go backwards. So the problems today, they're going to give us this as the problem, and we're going to try to work backwards to figure out the multiplication problem as the answer. So we're going to try to undo the multiplication and go backwards to find the problem now. All right, so we're going to kind of be doing these reverse box problems. Hopefully the review kind of set us up for that. So the first example we're going to try factoring is to factor x squared plus 6x plus 8. So I'm going to try to find the multiplication problem that if I use the box, I'd end up x squared plus 6x plus 8. And so what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go ahead and set up that box. And what you're going to have to remember to do is in the first box every time I'm going to put my first term, and in my last box, every time I'm going to put my last term. And if we look back at the multiplication stuff, you can see that the first box is always the first term of the answer, and the last box is always the last term of the answer. So x squared and a plus 8. Now, what I'm going to need is I'm going to need two numbers that multiply to x squared. That's automatically going to be x and x. Now, kind of the tougher part is figuring out what these two numbers are. And to figure out those two numbers, I know that I want it to make these two boxes add to the middle number. So I know I need two numbers that add to make 6. And those same two numbers, when I multiply them, those two green numbers need to multiply to 8, right? Because this times this needs to make this over here. So when I multiply those two numbers together, I need to get 8. So I need to think of two numbers that when I add them together, I get 6, and when I multiply them together, I get 8. Now there's only two options of things that multiply to 8, and I always think of my options for multiplying first, because adding there's going to be more options. For 8, I have 1 and 8 or 2 and 4, right? So in this case, 2 and 4 is going to add to 6, and it's going to multiply to 8. So if I had picked these ones, 1 and 8 are going to add to 9, right? Not add to 6. So I picked plus 2 and a plus 4. And so my answer is x plus 2 times x plus 4 on this one. All right, we're going to try another one here. We're going to factor, this time I'll factor x squared plus 9x plus 20. So again, every time I'm going to draw down my box, and I'm going to put x squared, my first number in the first box, and 20, my last number in the last box. And I need two things that multiply to x squared. So for today, it's always going to be x and x, because our first term today is always going to be x squared. And then I'm going to need two numbers that multiply to make my last box 20, because this times this, I know I'm multiplying into my box to get 20. And I need those two numbers when I add up the diagonal here. I need those two numbers to add to 9, right? So two numbers that multiply to 20 and add to 9. Think about what those two numbers could be and enter your answer when you're ready. Yeah, hopefully you said 5 and 4, right? 5 times 4 is going to make 20. 5 plus 4 is going to make 9. I usually think about the multiplying options first, so we'd have 1 and 20, we'd have 2 and 10, and we'd have 4 and 5. Those are the only three options, the things that multiply to 20, and 4 and 5 is the only one that's going to add to 9. This one's going to be 12, 2 and 10, and 1 and 20 is going to be 21. So I'm going to pick a plus 5 and a plus 4. Again, it should make this box 5x and 4x, which does make this diagonal add to the 9x. So then my answer for the multiplying problem that we could have multiplied to get to x squared plus 9x plus 20 would be x plus 5 times x plus 4. All right, here's one for you to try. I want you to factor x squared plus 7x plus 10. Go ahead and use the box. You're going to need two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to 7. So go ahead and work that out and enter your answer when you're ready. So hopefully you started out like that. X and x makes x squared. I need two numbers that multiply to 10. My two options for things that multiply to 10 are 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. And I know 2 and 5 are going to add to 7, which is my middle number. 1 and 10 would add to 11, which is not what I want here. So I'll throw 2 and 5 in. I get 2x and 5x, which does add to 7x when I combine that diagonal. And so I know my answer here is going to be x plus 2 times x plus 5. All right, where these problems get a little tougher is where we have to throw some negatives in there, and that really can throw some people off. So let's try example 2a. So we're going to factor x squared minus 3x minus 18. And again, for all these problems, I'm going to do them with the box. So I'm going to draw my box down. I'm going to put an x squared in that first box and a minus 18 in that last box. And I know that x squared is going to be x and x, so I can always start with that. Now, the difficult thing is I know I need these two numbers to multiply to make negative 18. And those same numbers, when I get them on the inside here, are going to have to add to negative 3. So I need two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 18 and add to negative 3. So, again, that's a little tough because I'm thinking about negatives now, but I'm still going to start by writing out all the things that multiply to 18. When I'm writing out those options, I start with 1 and 18. I always start with 1. And then I'm going to try 2. Does 2 work? Yes, it does. 2 times 9. Does 3 work? Yes, 3 times 6. Does 4 work? No, because 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 is 20, so it skips over. 4 doesn't work. Does 5 work? 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 4 is 20, so it skips over. It doesn't work. And then 6, I already have it. So I know those are going to be the three options that multiply to 18. Now I have to think about, if I'm multiplying it to negative 18, I need one of those numbers to be positive and one of those numbers to be negative. And that comes from our multiplication triangle, right? I know if my answer is a negative, then I know it must be a negative times a positive in the end. And so if I want the answer to add to negative 3, in a way I'm trying to think about if I have a pair where the numbers are 3 apart, which I do, right? Because 3 and 6 are 3 apart. And that means when I set them up, I want it to be a negative 3. So if I pick a plus 3 and a minus 6, that's going to add to a negative 3 and multiply to a negative 18. So if I put a plus 3 and a minus 6 in here, I get plus 3x and minus 6x. The good thing is the blue works out because 3 times negative 6 does make a negative 18 down here. And then 3x minus 6x does make the minus 3x in the middle. So my answer then would be x plus 3 times x minus 6. So the idea of this problem is definitely a little bit more challenging with the negatives. Not because the process changes, but just because the work we have to do with negatives can be a bit challenging. So there's a couple different types of situations where we'd have negatives to deal with. One is where we have kind of the negative middle term and the negative last term. We also have the situation where you have a negative middle term and a positive last term. And so if we're looking at this one here, we would have x squared minus 8x plus 16. So if I'm thinking about factoring that with the box, I'm going to draw my box down. First box is x squared, last box is a plus 16. I know that x and x is going to make x squared. And then I need two numbers that are going to multiply to a plus 16 and add to a negative 8. So if I'm looking at numbers that multiply to a plus 16, I'd have 1 and 16. And then jump up to 2. So 2 and 8. 2 times 8 makes 16. 3 and 5 is too low. 3 and 6 is too high, so that doesn't work. And we have 4, and 4 times 4. And then now I went all the way around, right? So once you kind of hit a number on the right side, you know that you found them all. Now, I need two numbers that add to negative 8. And that should be a little bit weird because multiplying to a positive 16, I would think it would be positive and positive. But remembering my multiplication triangle, if I have a negative times a negative, that's also going to multiply to a positive. So if I have two numbers multiplying to positive 16, the only way I can make them add to a negative is if both numbers are negative, right? So I'm either dealing with negative 1 and negative 16, negative 2 and negative 8, or negative 4 and negative 4. Now in terms of adding to negative 8, 4 and 4 is the pair that's going to work, right? So I'd have x minus 4 times x minus 4. And multiplying in this would make a minus 4x and a minus 4x, which that does add to that negative 8x that we would want. So in the end, my answer would be x minus 4 times x minus 4. And this is the same thing twice, often you'll see that written as x minus 4 quantity squared. All right, I'm going to leave you with two to try. The first one, we're going to factor x squared minus 2x minus 15. So just set you up if you have the box here. We'd have x squared, I'd have a minus 15. X and x, obviously, I need two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 15 and add to negative 2. So go ahead and figure those out and enter your answer when you're ready. All right, so hopefully you saw that the only options here are 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. Again, one's going to be positive and one's negative, so I picked 3 and 5. I'd have a negative 5 and a plus 3. So minus 5 and plus 3 is going to make it work here. Again, negative 5x and a plus 3x is going to combine to negative 2x. So my answer would be x minus 5 times x plus 3. All right, last one for you to try, factor x squared plus x minus 6. This one's a little tough because I'm looking for two numbers that really add to 1 here. We can kind of think, if you ever see this x here, I can kind of think of it as 1x. So I'm looking for the numbers to add to a positive 1. Again, I'm looking at x squared plus x minus 6, so I'm going to need two numbers that multiply to negative 6 in that last box and add to a positive 1, so x and x. And then I'm going to need two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to a positive 1. Go ahead and work that out and enter your answer when you're ready. So it's either 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. In this case, 2 and 3, I can make them 1 apart. And I want it to be a positive 1, so I'm going to pick up plus 3 and a minus 2. So minus 2 and plus 3. When I try that, I'm going to end up getting plus 3x and minus 2x, which is going to add to the plus 1x that I wanted in the middle there. So my answer is going to be x minus 2 times x plus 3. Hopefully this gives us some good background on factoring. You should be ready to try the big ideas now. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time.